Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby, and I'm bringing you something quite exciting today. I'm bringing you a gameplay preview of the 112. Now this tank for some reason was just released on Monday night. I managed to get my hands on it. I played a load of games in it already, and I'm going to try and get you everything that you need to know about this tank right now. So in a nutshell, this tank is very important to the game because currently one of the best money makers is the IS-6. The 112 is very important because it seems to cover up quite a few of the weaknesses of the IS-6. So if you like the kind of playstyle you get in the IS-6 but you're frustrated by the lack of penetration and the fact that your turret is a giant weak point, then definitely stay tuned. The 112 is looking like it might be your kind of a tank. Now one of the important things about this tank is it does get preferential matchmaking. I was unable to meet any tier 10 tanks with this. That's very important and one of the reasons why the IS-6 is a very competitive moneymaker. If the IS-6 was able to meet tier 10 tanks, it would be completely outperformed by the Lurve and the T-34. But because the IS-6 can never meet tier 10s, that makes the gun, which has only got 175mm of penetration, quite competitive. Now the 112 is quite similar to the tier 8 Chinese heavy tank, the 110. Now before all you 110 drivers start panicking, don't worry, the 112 is nearly worse in every way. However, the 112 is a premium tank which can make lots of credits and has that preferential matchmaking that the 110 can't. So before we compare the 110 to the 112, let me just go over the 112 stats irrespective of the other tank. The tank has 1,500 hit points, which is fairly standard. It weighs a fairly healthy 46 tons, and the 580 brake horsepower engine is sufficient for this tank to be able to get up to a decent speed. Its top speed is a very nice 45 kilometers an hour, and its traverse speed is an acceptable 26 degrees a second. Now its hull armor is 120mm at the front, and as you can see the front is very well angled. An amazing angle on this frontal armor. The side armor is 80 and the rear armor is 60. One thing I will say is this tank is very long, and when catching the side profile it is fairly easy to hit it and penetrate it, even with such derpy guns as I've been using on this 112. Now the view range on this tank is excellent, it's 380 meters. When you compare this for example to the IS-3, this is very significant. It has 30 meters view range over the IS-3. Now the 112's turret traverse is only 26 degrees a second, so be careful. You might find it hard to turn your tracks and turn your turret in time to try and engage the enemy if they try and surround you. And its signal range is much lower than, for example, the 110 at only 600 meters. So don't get too far away from your friends or you will be falling out of radio contact with them. Now to talk about the gun of this tank. The gun is 122mm. It fires 4.55 rounds a minute with only 175mm of penetration, but 390 alpha damage. Now the accuracy is an awful 0.46 and the aim time is an awful 0.34. Now the terrible penetration of this tank can be covered up by loading heat rounds. As you can see here, they are very expensive, being nearly 5 times more expensive than your regular rounds. But they do come with an absolutely game-changing 250mm of penetration. Now many of you guys who do drive IS-6s will know that that's probably the main weakness about the IS-6, is the fact that its gun, even when loading premium ammunition, only has 217mm of penetration. Comparing the guns on the IS-6 and the 112 here, we can see that the 112 has significantly lower DPM, firing 0.58 less rounds a minute, but its penetration with its premium rounds is significantly higher, 33mm, and that makes a huge difference. Whereas the IS-6, even when firing premium rounds, can barely penetrate the front of quite a few other tier 8 heavy tanks. With the heat rounds of 250mm of penetration, you're going to be able to go through most of them very reliably with the 112. But of course you're going to have to pay for it. Still, as you are playing a heavy tank, if you do penetrate the heat rounds, you're likely to break even or still make money. If you do bounce them though, you're gonna run out of money very quickly, and because you're playing a premium tank, it's likely that that's the reason why you want to be playing the tank, is to make money. And the tank can use vert stabs, rammer, and vents, which is fairly standard, and that's very relevant considering that the aim time on this tank is 3.4. So when we compare this tank directly to the 110, we can see here that when the 110 uses the 122mm cannon, it fires nearly an extra half a round a minute, but the rest of the stats are completely the same. So basically the 112 has 10% lower DPM than the 110 would if it chose to use the 122mm. However, most 110 drivers will use the 100mm, which allows them to penetrate much more reliably with regular rounds and have the extra penetration better accuracy and improved aim time with the APCR rounds as well. I'd say the 110 is a better tank in nearly every regard, but the 112 is a premium, and that's the reason why you'll be playing it. So without further ado, let's take a look at some gameplay. So here we go, guys. We're playing the 112 on Arctic region. I'm going to skip through the first few minutes of the game so we can get straight to the action and so we can test out this fabulous 112. Okay, so here we go. I make a bit of a mistake here right at the start of the game. I realize, why am I trying to snipe in a tank that only has 175mm of penetration at a bunch of tanks? That's really not a very clever idea. But here we go, we got a chance at the side. I swear that went right through the enemy tank, but I was lagging quite hard in this game, so what are we going to do? But anyway, oh my word, wow, the enemies are playing aggressive. This is a test server after all. They want to do some testing, I want to do some testing, let's go! And there's our first shot of the game, 361 damage. I'm trying to reverse up and keep my frontal armor to the enemies. They don't seem to want to fire at the front of my tank. That one did. Unfortunately we bounce. I decide to load some heat. I realize there's someone behind me, but I'm not too interested in him at the moment. You guys would be forgiven for thinking, oh my god, what's going to go on? I reverse into him, he fails to do any damage to me, and I ram him for a bit of damage. Luckily we set that T-34 on fire, and he dies as well. And this guy bounced his heat round off the front of my tank. And you're going to be surprised at the amount of heat rounds that we managed to bounce in the 112. There you go, there's another heat round bounce. We bounced 3 or 4 heat rounds which have got 250mm of penetration off the front of this tank. And that's something that's not very unusual. The frontal armor of this tank, as I highlighted in the garage, is amazing. That means you do bounce those heat rounds and punish tanks like that guy. Remember that the turret armor on this tank is also great. Really, if they fire the heat rounds at your turret, it's very likely to bounce unless they get quite lucky. As you can see here, my connection was going absolutely crazy in this game. There's not much that I can do about that. So we're going to keep the aggression up. We're using our excellent top speed and engine power to get into position. And brutalize our opponents. Absolutely brutalize them. Such is the nature of the 122mm. So you may be thinking, wow, okay, maybe this is the tank for me. An absolutely linear brawler of a tank that is capable of loading heat when it needs to penetrate its opponents. Unlike the IS-6, which sometimes can just falter and get owned by people who have got good frontal armor, this tank can just go, oh no you don't. But look at this awful aim time at range, guys. This is with vertical stabilizers as well. The aim time is just simply awful. I gave lead to the tank there, and it was the mistake. He slowed down and we only tracked him. We go for the kill again now, and we try and give lead to the tank again, and our gunner fires significantly to the left. Remember, this tank has got 0.46 accuracy at 100 meters, which mean that you're going to struggle to be able to snipe the enemy at this kind of range. I wanted to go and help the T-34-3 there, but he got himself into a bit of trouble. And oh god, we got a Tiger II coming down towards us. I penetrate him and track him, but it was not enough. He managed to pen our frontal armor. And that's all she wrote for the 112. So here we can see that we managed to get 1,670 experience for that defeat and 95,000 credits. You may be going, how did you manage to get that much experience for a defeat? Well, if you haven't watched my other videos, please do so. You're missing out, and it would have been explained to you. That's because now, in 8.8, if you get one of the Battle Hero medals, you get 50% extra credits and 50% extra wins, even if you lose. So basically, if you lose and you get a Battle Hero medal, you're still a winner. And that's a great thing for the game in my opinion. As you can see here, we got the Battle Hero medal and we finished way on top of our team. And I'm pretty sure that we finished on top of most of the enemy team as well. That's just one of the great features coming in 8.8, and it was really impressive to be able to earn 95,000 credits in a game where we played quite derpy really and were so aggressive. Anyway, let's take a look at some more gameplay. Okay, so now we're playing on Lakeville. I'm hopefully going to showcase some more of the 112 for you, because one helping of gameplay was not enough. Just going to skip the battle here a little bit, getting into position. And immediately you can see that we have fairly good gun depression in this tank. We're trying to aim down on the upper plate of the T-34-3, but we can see there with our regular rounds, it's very hard to penetrate him. But one thing I will highlight immediately, the reason why I've taken this position here, and specifically why I'm trying to show this replay to you, is that, I'm sorry, these national voices are still hilarious, but this tank has got gun depression. It's got fairly good gun depression. It's not incredible, but it's really good. And it allows you to go fairly hull down in this tank in some positions and really use the upper plate and the turret armor of this tank to remain quite strong. Unfortunately, we get penned very interestingly here. I'm going to pause this for a second. That shot went up into this part of the tank, and I wouldn't have thought that that would be a part of the tank that would damage it. But it looks like this part of the tank here counts as full damage. But oh well, let's continue. I'm trying to go hull down, use my excellent turret armor and my great upper plate on this tank to try and mitigate as much damage as I can. Just trying to do as much as I can to the enemy. I've yet to load a heat round. We managed to penetrate our fourth shell there. Aiming down on the upper plates of the T-34-3 means that we can really start to punish them. Here we go, we're looking for that shot. We have it! And he is indeed out, thank you there. Okay, so we're going to try and keep pushing. We're still trying to keep our armor as well angled as we can. Going to go here and try and snipe at a T-28, which generally isn't the best idea in a 112. Your aim time is pretty awful at range, and your accuracy is pretty awful as well. I realise that my camera is freaking out, guys. It's really late and I don't have time to fix it, so apologies for that. This tank just came out and I'm staying up late to try and get it for you in review form. There we can see the fantastic alpha damage, able to beast the sides of that 112. And our team is cleaning up this town, absolutely cleaning it up. We're able to penetrate that T-34-3, take his track off, and set him on fire with that one shot. That was a monster round coming from the tank there. We can see the traverse speed on this tank is not epic, which means that it does get slowed down a bit while trying to traverse corners, as you can see here. However, it does get around fairly quickly. It's not like terrible heavy pace. Here we go, we're trying to aim for the side of this T-28. We can see the horrific aim time. I decide to try and fire the shot clutch, and it manages to go in. And wow, that's all she wrote for the enemy team. Again, this replay specifically highlighted the fact that this tank has got fantastic frontal armor, even when the enemies are firing heat at you. And it also showcased that the gun depression on this tank means that it can be quite effective at range. So let's take a quick look at some post-game stats. So interestingly, we've got less experience in this game than we did in the other game, but we still got our Mastery 2 badge. So we can see we're able to get 88,000 credits and 1,524 experience for that game. This really shows you how great this tank is at making money, and that's probably why you're going to be buying it. You're going to be buying this tank for making money and for having preferential matchmaking. And as you guys have been shown in the last two replays, you can have high explosive intense games which didn't really require that much skill and still make a lot of credits. We're able to do just shy of 2,300 damage there, pick up 3 kills and nearly finish top on experience. Just a standard kind of game there really. What that game really showcased though is that this tank does have fairly good gun depression and it does have really good armor at range even when enemies are firing high penetrating heat shells at you. So what's my overall opinion of this tank? Well, I'll just say it straight up. The fact that this tank does not have a weak point with its turret means that it is better than the IS-6. Also, the fact that this tank can load heat rounds, which have got 250mm of penetration, mean that this tank is better than the IS-6. However, remember that you are losing 15% DPM compared to the IS-6. So whereas the IS-6 is able to absolutely brutalize tanks which it can guarantee to penetrate, the 112 is slightly more of a lumbering beast that doesn't really have the DPM to shoot itself out of trouble. However, what the 112 can do is engage tier 9 tanks and tier 8 tanks a lot more effectively than the IS-6 can. Personally, I would trade my IS-6 for a 112 right now. It's a great all-rounder tank, and I can't recommend this enough. Because it has preferential matchmaking, I think that this tank will become my recommended tier 8 premium tank in the game. I think if you're going to own one tier 8 premium tank, I think it should be the 112. However, remember that this is the first test and things do change. This tank might be nerfed, it might be even buffed slightly. We don't know, but in its current state, it will become my favorite tier 8 premium tank in the game just for making money. And the fact that I can still carry the games by loading those premium rounds. As an example, when an IS-6 engages an ST-1 or an E-75, there's nothing that it can do, even if it fires premium rounds. It has to snipe for cupolas, for example. The 112, if it fires those heat rounds, it's going to be able to go through the front of the E-75 at range. And it's going to be able to make piecemeal of the ST-1's lower plate. Again, I fully recommend this tank. I'm hopefully going to pick one up on the live servers. And I think I will use this and alternate it with my IS-6 to make rapid money. So guys, I hope you've appreciated this gameplay preview. I stayed up really late to get it for you, and I'm going to release it fairly quickly, so thank you so much for checking it out. If you've enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you rate it down below, and tell me what you think about this tank. Do you think it's a really great tank? Are you going to pick up one? Would you replace any of your tier 8 premium tanks with this absolute beast? If this is your first time watching my videos, then why not think about subscribing? As always guys, thank you so much for tuning in. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.